You're lying in a parked truck at night. The world outside is dark, quiet, almost frozen. But inside the cabin, there's a constant low rumble. The engine is still running. Hours go by, fuel is being burned, and nothing is moving. And the strange part? This isn't rare. It happens every single night, all over the world. So here's the question that most people never stop to ask. If the truck isn't going anywhere, why don't drivers just turn the engine off? Hey, real quick, if you enjoy simple explanations that make you see everyday things differently, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps the channel grow, and you won't miss what's coming next. But here's the surprising truth. Truck drivers aren't leaving their engines on because they want to. They're doing it because, in many situations, they don't really have a choice. At first glance, it feels wasteful. You might think it's just habit, or maybe even laziness. After all, when you park your car, you turn it off instantly. That's normal, that's obvious. But this is where most people get confused. A truck isn't just a vehicle. For long-haul drivers, it's also their bedroom, their shelter, and sometimes their only safe place to rest for days at a time. Now, picture a freezing night. Temperatures drop close to zero. Inside the cabin, without the engine running, the heat disappears fast. Within minutes, the cabin starts to feel like the outside air. Within hours, it can become dangerously cold. And here's the key detail most people don't realize. The heating system in many trucks depends on the engine. No engine running means no heat. So turning the engine off isn't just uncomfortable, it can actually be unsafe. But then you might think, okay, that makes sense for cold weather, but what about warm nights? That's where things get even more interesting. Because the exact same problem exists in reverse. On hot nights, especially in places where temperatures stay high even after sunset, the inside of a parked truck can quickly turn into an oven. No airflow, no cooling, no relief. And again, in many trucks, the air conditioning system only works when the engine is running. So now the driver faces a choice. Turn off the engine and deal with extreme heat or cold, or keep it running and stay safe and comfortable enough to actually sleep. And sleep isn't optional here. Truck drivers operate under strict regulations about how long they can drive. If they don't rest properly, they're not just uncomfortable, they're putting themselves and everyone else on the road at risk. So what seems like a simple decision, engine on or off, actually connects directly to safety, health, and even the law. But here's what surprises most people even more. It's not just about temperature. There's another layer to this that almost nobody thinks about, and it has to do with how these massive machines are built to function over long periods. Because unlike a regular car, turning a truck on and off repeatedly isn't always the best thing for the engine itself. In fact, in some cases, shutting it down too often can create more problems than leaving it running. And once you understand why, the whole situation starts to look very different. So now it's not just about comfort anymore. It's about how the truck itself actually works. Because here's something most people never think about. A truck engine isn't designed for quick, short trips like a regular car. It's built for long, continuous operation. Hours on the road, hundreds of miles without stopping. That's where it performs best. And this is where things get counterintuitive. Turning the engine off and on repeatedly, something that feels completely normal in a car, can actually increase wear on a heavy-duty diesel engine. Here's why. When a truck engine is shut off, it begins to cool down. That might sound harmless, but cooling and reheating large metal components over and over again creates stress. Parts expand when hot and contract when cold. Repeating that cycle constantly can lead to long-term damage. But that's just part of it. The bigger issue comes when the engine starts again. Starting a large diesel engine isn't a small event. It requires a lot of power, a lot of fuel, and puts significant strain on components like the battery and starter motor. So every time the engine is turned off, you're setting up a heavier, more stressful restart later. Now combine that with cold weather and things get even more complicated. In very low temperatures, diesel fuel can thicken, oil becomes more viscous, the engine doesn't want to turn over as easily. So if a driver shuts off the engine overnight in freezing conditions, there's a real risk the truck simply won't start in the morning. And that's not just inconvenient. It can mean being stranded in the middle of nowhere, losing delivery deadlines, or even facing dangerous situations depending on the location. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They assume leaving the engine running is careless, when in reality, it's often the safer and more reliable option. But wait, there's another layer that almost nobody talks about: electricity. Even when the truck is parked, there are still systems running: interior lights, communication devices, refrigeration units in some trailers, and other onboard electronics. All of this requires power, and while trucks do have batteries, they aren't always designed to support everything for long periods without the engine running. So if the engine is off, those systems can drain the battery over time, and once again, that leads back to the same problem: a truck that won't start. Now, you might be thinking, why not just design trucks differently? And here's the interesting part. Manufacturers have already started doing that. Modern trucks sometimes include auxiliary power units, or APUs. These are smaller systems that can provide heating, cooling, and electricity without running the main engine. There are also battery-powered and even hybrid solutions being developed. But here's the reality. Not every truck on the road has these systems. Many are older models, others operate in conditions where these alternatives aren't enough, and in some cases, the cost of upgrading simply isn't practical. So drivers rely on what they know works every time: keeping the engine running. And suddenly, what looked like a simple question, why not just turn it off, turns into something much deeper. It's about survival in extreme temperatures. It's about protecting the engine. It's about ensuring the truck actually starts when it needs to. And it's about maintaining a system that millions of people depend on every single day. Because in the end, that quiet rumble in the night isn't waste. It's a solution. A solution to problems most people never see, inside a machine that never really gets to rest. If you found this interesting, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more explanations like this, because sometimes the simplest things hide the most misunderstood truths.